श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः। हरिः ओम्। श्रीशैले शतजापातं दीपत्यादुगुणानवं यतीन्द्रं प्रणवं वन्दे रम्यजामातरं मुनिम्। आगमार्थं तु देवानागमनार्थं तु राक्षतां घण्टानादं करोम्याहं देवताह्वान्वलाञ्छनं त्रिघण्टानादं कृत्वा नमस्तजते नमः तदस्पतये नमः सखीनां पुरोगानां चक्षुषे नमो दिवे नमः पृथिव्यैः सप्रजतभां मे गोपाय ये च सभ्याः सपासतः तानिन्द्रियावतः कुरु सर्वमायुरुपासताम्। अक्षतां पुष्पान् गृहीत्वा कुम्भूः ममोपात्तातमस्ता द्रुतक्षयद्वारा श्री परमेश्वरमुद्दिश्य श्री श्रीमन्नारायण प्रीत्यर्थम् आदौ विश्वक्षे नमः गणपति पूजां करिष्ये। आदौ विश्वक्षे नमः गणपति पूजां करिष्ये। सूत्रपतिमद् विश्वक्षेनाय नमः। ध्यायामि विश्वक्षेनं सकलविभूतप्रौढसैन्यादिनादं मुद्राचक्रकर्तृशङ्खदानं मेघश्यामं सुमनमकटं पीतवस्त्रं शुभाङ्गं ध्यायेदेवदलितदनुजं सूत्रपत्या समेतं गणानाहं त्वा गणपतिगं हवामहे कविं कवीनामुपमश्रवत्तमं ज्येष्ठराजं ब्रह्मणां ब्रह्मणस्पद आनशृण्वन्नोतिभिश्चेदसादनं सूत्रपतिसमेत विश्वक्षेनाय नमः। आवाहनं समर्पयामि। ओं ध्यायामि ध्यानं समर्पयामि। आवाहयामि आसनं समर्पयामि। पादयोः पाद्यं समर्पयामि। हस्तयोः अर्घ्यमर्घ्यं समर्पयामि। मुखे आचमनीयं समर्पयामि। स्नापयामि। स्नानानन्तरेण वस्त्रार्थं पुष्पं समर्पयामि। आभरणार्थं पुष्पं समर्पयामि। अलङ्करणार्थं पुष्पं समर्पयामि। ओं हरिद्राकुङ्कुमपुष्पं समर्पयामि। श्रीगन्धान् धारयामि। पुष्पैः पूजयामि। ओं सूत्रपद्याय नमः। शिवनमकुटाय नमः। पीत्रभद्राय नमः। विजिततनुजाय नमः। सुमुखाय नमः। एकदन्ताय नमः। कपिलाय नमः। गजकर्णकाय नमः। लम्बोदराय नमः। विकटाय नमः। विघ्नराजाय नमः। गणाधिपाय नमः। धूमकेतवे नमः। गणाध्यक्षाय नमः। पालचन्द्राय नमः। गजाननाय नमः। वक्रतुण्डाय नमः। शूर्पकर्णाय नमः। हेरम्बाय नमः। सूत्रपति समेत विश्वक्षेनाय नमः। नानाविधदिव्यपरिमलपत्रपुष्पार्चनं समर्पयामि। मूर्धानं दिव अरतिं पृथिव्या वैश्वानरमृताय जातमग्निं कविकं सम्प्रातमजतिं जनानामासन्नापात्रं जनयन्त देवाः। सूत्रपतिसमेत विश्वक्षेनाय नमः। धूपं समर्पयामि। उद्दीप्यत्वजातवेदोपज्ञन्निरुतिं मम पशोगश्चमक्षमावह जीवनं च धिषोतु च। सूत्रपतिसमेत विश्वक्षेनाय नमः। दीपं दर्शयामि। सूत्रपतिसमेत विश्वक्षेनाय नमः। दीपं दर्शयामि। नैवेद्यं दाशनशोषं दर्शया। ॐ पंचोपहारपतिनिवेदनं समर्पयामि। ॐ तत्पुरुषाय विद्महे नेत्रहस्ताय धीमहि तन्नः शान्ता प्रचोदयात्। एकदन्ताय विद्महे वक्रतुण्डाय धीमहि तन्नो दन्ति प्रचोदयात्। विश्वक्षेनाय नमः। सूत्रपति विश्वक्षेनाय नमः। द्विज्वाददीपं धरिषयामि। अक्षतान् गृहीत्वा श्रीगोविन्द गोविन्द गोविन्दः अद्य श्रीभगवतः महाविष्णोराज्ञेय प्रवर्तमानस्य अद्य ब्रह्मणः द्वितीयपरार्थे श्वेतवराहकल्पे वैवस्वतमन्वन्तरे कलियुगे प्रथमपादे ऐन्द्रखण्डे रमणकवर्षे क्रौञ्चद्वीपे कुबेरसन्निधौ अस्मिन् वर्तमानव्यवहारिकचान्द्रमानेन प्रभवादिषष्टिसंवत्सराणां शुभकृतनाम संवत्सरे उत्तरायणे वसन्तऋतु वैशाखमासे शुक्लपक्षे पौर्णम्यां शुभतिथौ वासरस्तु अद्यः भानुवासरयुक्तायां शुभनक्षत्रशुभयोगशुभकर्ण विशाखानक्षत्रशुभयोगशुभकर्ण एवं गणविशेषणविशिष्टायाम् अस्यां शुभजितो अस्य देवदेवोत्तमा देवता सार्वभौमा श्रीमतिकलाण्डकोटिब्रह्माण्डनायक श्रीरमादेवी समेत श्री सत्यनारायणस्वामिने नमः। सायंकालसमयेन विशेषतः सकललोकक्षेमपरिपूर्णता सिद्ध्यर्थम् आदित्यादि नवग्रहदेवता पूजानन्तरं सकलक्षेमपरिपूर्णता सिद्ध्यर्थं लोकक्षेमपरिपूर्णता सिद्ध्यर्थम् आदौ आचार्यमुखेन श्रीरमादेवी समेत सत्यनारायणस्वामी पूजार्थम् आचार्यमुखेन अध्यकरिष्ये इति सङ्कल्प्य अबहुपपृश्य यज्ञेन यज्ञमयजन्त देवाः तानि धर्माणि प्रथमान्यासन् ते हनाकमहिमानः सजन्ते यत्र पूर्वे साध्यासन्ति देवाः। सूत्रपतिसमेत विश्वक्षेनाय नमः। यथा तानं यथाधकं प्रतिष्ठापयामि शोभनार्थे क्षेमाय पुनरागमनाय च। आदौ निर्विघ्नेन प्रतिमावाप्यर्थेन श्री आदित्यादि नवग्रहदेवताभ्यो नमः। प्रतिमायाम् आवाहनं करिष्ये। आकृष्णनिर्णेतृत्वमन्त्रस्य हिरण्यस्तु वृचिः सविता देवता त्रिट्युप्यन्तः अजदेवता प्रत्यदेवता सहित सूर्यग्रहप्रसादित्यर्थे सूर्यग्रह आराधने विनियोगः आसत्येन रजता वर्तमानो निवेशजन्नमृतमर्च्यं च हिरण्यजेन सुवितारतेन देवो जाति भुवना विपश्यन् अग्निं दोतं वृणीमहे होतारं विश्ववेदसम् अस्य यज्ञस्य सुकृतं कद्रद्राज प्रचेतते मेरिष्टमाय तप्यते वोचेमशन्तमकं हृदे मध्ये सूर्यग्रहम् आवाहयामि स्थापयामि पूजयामि प्रतिमायाम् आवाहयामि स्थापयामि पूजयामि ओम आप्ततः चन्द्रग्रहम् आप्यायस्वेदसमन्त्रस्य गौतम ऋषिः चन्द्रो देवता गायत्री छन्दः अजदेवता प्रत्यजदेवता तहिता चन्द्रग्रहप्रसादित्यर्थ चन्द्रग्रह आराधने विनियोगः आप्यायस्पतमेतुते विस्पतस्तमवृष्णियं भव अवाजस्तदङ्गते अप्समे सोम अब्रवीद्धन्तर्विश्वानिवेशज अग्निं च विश्वशम्भवमापश्च विश्वपेशजीः गौरीमिमाजसलिलानि तक्षत्येकपदी द्विपदी सा चतुष्पदी अष्टापदी नवपदी बभूवुजि सहस्राः अक्षरा परमे व्योमन् चन्द्रग्रहं प्रतिमायाम् आवाहयामि स्थापयामि पूजयामि अग्निर्मूर्तविरूप अंगारको गायत्री ओम अग्निर्मूर्धादिवः कगत्पति पृथिव्या अयम् अपागं रेतागं सजन्वति स्यवना पृथिवी भवान् रक्षरा निवेशनि यच्छान शर्मदप्रधाः क्षेत्रस्य पतिना वजगं हितेनेव जजामति गामश्वं भोजयित्वा मृडाति दृशे अंगारकग्रहं प्रतिमायाम् आवाहयामि स्थापयामि पूजयामि अभिमुखीकरोमि उद्भुज्य नारायण दृष्टप बृहत् ओम बुधग्रहम् ओम उद्भुज्यत्वाग्नेपतिजागृष्येन मिष्टापूर्ते सकं प्रचेथा मयञ्च पुनः कण्वद्गत्वा पितरं जुवानमन्वाताकं धेत्वा इदन्तमेदम् इदं विष्णुर्वचक्रमे त्रेधा न च ते पदं समूढमस्तपाकं धुरे विष्णुररारमति विष्णोः प्रश्नमति विष्णु अत्रप्त्रेस्तो विष्णु अस्योरति विष्णोः ध्रुवमति वैष्णवमति वैष्णवे त्वा बुधग्रहं प्रतिमायाम् आवाहयामि स्थापयामि पूजयामि अभिमुखीकरोमि ततः बृहस्पतिग्रहम् ओम बृहस्पते अतियधर्य अर्हाः द्युमद्भिवादगतिमज्जनेषु यद्दीदयष्टवतर्थ प्रजाता तदस्मादो द्रविणं देहि चित्रं ब्रह्मजज्ञानं प्रथमं पुरद्दाद्वितीयमजत्तरुचोपेन आवह सबुद्निया उपमा अस्तविष्टा ततश्च जो नियमजतश्च विवः इन्द्रमरुद्व यः पाहि सोमं यथाचार्याथे अभिवस्तुतस्य ताव प्रणीत तपशोरशर्मन्नाभिवासन्तकवयस्तु यज्ञाः बृहस्पतिग्रहं प्रतिमायाम् आवाहयामि स्थापयामि पूजयामि अभिमुखीकरोमि ओम शुक्रन्ते परद्वा शुक्रदृष्टुप अजदेवता प्रत्यजदेवता तहित शुक्रग्रह प्रसादित्यर्थ शुक्रग्रह आराधने विनियोगः ओम शुक्रन्ते अन्यज्ज जदन्ते अन्यद्विषरूपे अहनि जोरिवादि विश्वाहि मायावदिस्पदा भद्राते पूषन्निहरादिरद् इंद्राणि माधुना रजोदपत्नी महमश्रवं नक्षत्रापरञ्जन जरतामरते पतिः इंद्रं व विस्पतस्परिहवामहे जनेभ्यः आत्माकमत्व केवलः शुक्रग्रहं प्रतिमायाम् आवाहयामि स्थापयामि पूजयामि अभिमुखीकरोमि ओम तथा शनिचरग्रहम् ओम इलिमृशनिचरग्रहो देवता अजिदेवता प्रत्ययदेवता तैग्र आराधने विनियोगः ओम शमग्निरग्निभिस्करच्छन्नस्तव च सूर्यः शंवातो वात्परापा अपस्थितः प्रजापतेन त्वतेतान्यन्यो विश्वाजातानि परिता बभूव यत्कामास्तेजुहुमस्तन्नो अस्तु वजग्गस्यामवदजोरजीनां इमां यमाप्रस्तरनमाहि सीताङ्गिरोभिः पितृभिः संविधानः आत्वा मन्त्राः कविषत्वा वहन्त्वेन राजन् हविषामादयत्वा ओम शनिचरग्रहं प्रतिमायाम् आवाहयामि स्थापयामि पूजयामि ओम कयानचित् वामदेवो राहुर्गायत्री अजिदेवता प्रत्ययदेवता तहित राहुग्रह प्रसादित्यर्थ राहुग्रह आराधने विनियोगः कयानचित्र आभवधूति सदा वृधः सखा कया जजिष्टया वृता आयङ्गवृचिरक्रमे तदनन्मातरं पुनः पितरं च प्रयंसुवः नमो अस्तु सर्पेभ्यो ये के च पृथिवीमन ये अन्तरिक्षे ये दिवितेभ्यः सर्वेभ्यो नमः ओम राहुग्रहं प्रतिमायाम् आवाहयामि स्थापयामि पूजयामि अभिमुखीकरोमि ततः केतुग्रहम् आवाहनम् ओम केतं कृण्वन्न केतपे पेशो मर्या अपेशसे समुषद्भिरजायदाः ब्रह्मादेवानाहं पदवी कवीनां ऋषिर्विप्राणां महिषा मृगाणां सेनागृद्रानागस्वजितिर्वनानागं दमः पवित्रमच्चेतिरेपन् सचित्रचित्तं चितयन्तमस्मि चित्रक्षत्रचित्रतमं वयोधा चन्द्रं प्रयं पुरवेरं बृहन्तं चन्द्रचन्द्राभिघ्नतेजवद्वा केतुग्रहं प्रतिमायाम् आवाहयामि स्थापयामि पूजयामि अभिमुखीकरोमि आदित्यादीनवग्रहदेवताभ्यो नमः ध्यायामि ध्यानं समर्पयामि आवाहयामि आसनं समर्पयामि पादयोः पाद्यं पाद्यं हस्तयोः वर्गमर्घ्यं मुखे आचमनीयम् आचमनीयं समर्पयामि ततः दिक्पालक पूजाम् उपग्रह देवता पूजां करिष्ये ओम जातवेदतेषु नवमतमराति यतो निधः दिवेदः सनपर्षद च दुर्गानि विश्वानावे वसिन्तं दुरितातिग्निः दुर्गामावाहयामि ओम गणानाहन्त्वा गणपतिं हवामहे कविं कवीनामुपमश्रवत्तमं ज्येष्ठराजं ब्रह्मणां ब्रह्मणस्पद आनशृण्वन्नोतिभिस्तेजदादनं गणपतिमावाहयामि क्षेत्रस्य पदिना वजगं हितेनेव जजामति गामश्वं भोजयित्वा मृडाति दृशे क्षेत्रपालकमावाहयामि यत इन्द्र भजामहे तद नभयं कृति मघवञ्चग्जितव तन्नभूतये बिभृजमृतोजिः अभयङ्करमावाहयामि वास्तोः पते प्रतिजानि हत्वान् वावेश अनमेव भवानः यत्वयमहे प्रजतन्नो जषत्वचन्न जयति द्विपदेशं चतुष्पदे वातपुरुषमावाहयामि ॐ पञ्चदेवताभ्यो नमः प्राग्दिग्भागे त्रातारविन्दमभितारविन्द्रकं हवे हवे सुहभगं शोरविन्द्रं हुवेनचक्रं परुहोतिमिन्द्रगस्पतिना मघवाधात्मिन्द्रः पूर्वदिग्भागे इन्द्रमावाहयामि स्थापयामि पूजयामि आग्नेयदिग्भागे अग्नये नमः पन्नो अग्नेवरनस्य विद्वान् देवस्य हेडो वयाजिदिष्टाः यज्येष्ठवन्हितमशो जजानो विश्वाद्वेषागं ते प्रममुज्यत्मत् आग्नेयदिग्भागे अग्निमावाहयामि दक्षिणदिग्भागे यममावाहयामि सुगन्नपन्तमभयं कृणोतु यस्मिन्नक्षत्रे यमयेति राजा यस्मिन्नेनमभ्युषिञ्चन्त देवाः तादस्य चित्रकं हविषा यजाम यममावाहयामि स्थापयामि पूजयामि ॐ असुन्वन्तमयजमानमित्यस्तेनस्तेत्यान्तस्वरत्यान्वेषि अन्नमत्मदित्यथात इत्या नमो देवे निरुदुभ्यमस्तु निरुदुमावाहयामि स्थापयामि पूजयामि तत्त्वायामि ब्रह्मणा वन्दमाना तदाशास्ते यजमानो हविर्भिः अहेडमानो वरणेह बोधरशकं समानः य प्रमोषीः वरणमावाहयामि स्थापयामि पूजयामि आनो न यद्वेषदिने बिरद्वगं साहात्रिणे बिरुपयाहि यज्ञं वायो हत्पिन् हविषमादयद्वा योजं पाद स्वस्तिभिः सदा नः वायविदिग्भमावाहयामि स्थापयामि पूजयामि वजगं सोमाप्रतेतव मनस्तनोष बिभ्रदः प्रजावन्तो अशीमहि इन्द्राणी देवीषु भगासु पत्नीः ॐ कुबेरमावाहयामि स्थापयामि पूजयामि समीशानं जगतस्तस्तु षट्पतिं दिजञ्जन्ममवते हूमहे वयं पूषा नो यथा वेदता मातद्वृते रक्षता पाजुरदभ्यस्वस्तये ॐ ईशानमावाहयामि ॐ अस्मे रुद्रमेहनः पर्वतादवृतहत्य परहोत सजोषाः यश्चंसते सुवतेथाय पत्र इन्द्रज्येष्ठ आत्माम् अवन्तु देवाः ऊर्ध्वमावाहयामि ॐ चोना पृथिवी भवान् रक्षरा निवेशनि यच्छान शर्मदप्रधाः पृथिव्यैमावाहयामि दिक्पालकदेवताभ्यो नमः पञ्चपालकदेवताभ्यो नमः ध्यायामि ध्यानं समर्पयामि आवाहयामि आसनं समर्पयामि पादयोः पाद्यं समर्पयामि हस्तयोः अर्घ्यमर्घ्यं समर्पयामि मुखे आचमनीयं समर्पयामि स्नापयामि स्नानानन्तरेण वस्त्रार्थं पुष्पं समर्पयामि आभरणार्थं पुष्पं समर्पयामि अलङ्करणार्थं पुष्पं समर्पयामि पुष्पैः पूजयामि हरिद्राकुङ्कुमगन्धं समर्पयामि ॐ सूर्याय नमः चन्द्राय नमः अंगारकाय नमः बुधाय नमः बृहत्पतये नमः शुक्राय नमः शनिश्चराय नमः राहवे नमः केतवे नमः पञ्चलोकपालकमावाहयामि उपग्रहदेवतामावाहयामि ॐ दिक्पालकदेवतामावाहयामि स्थापय नानाविधदिव्यपरिमलपत्रपुष्पार्चनं समर्पयामि धूर्वन्तं धूर्वतं जोहोत्मान् धूर्वतितं धूर्वयं वयं धूर्वामत्वं देवानामति धूपं समर्पयामि उद्दीप्यस्वजातवेदो मम पशोगश्चमक्षमावह जीवनं च दिशो दिशा दीपं दर्शयामि धूपदीपानन्तरं शुद्ध आचमनीयं समर्पयामि नैवेद्यम् ॐ भूर्भुवस्वः देवतपितप्रसूवादाशनशोषं प्रलापनसर्पमुद्रप्रदर्शय कदलीव्रताम्बूलं समर्पयामि मध्ये मध्ये पानीयम् उत्तरभोजनं हस्तप्रक्षालनं पादप्रक्षालनं शुद्ध आचमनीयं समर्पयामि पूगीव्रताम्बूलपुष्पं समर्पयामि भास्कराय विद्महे महाजितकराय धीमहि तन्नो आदित्य प्रचोदयात् आदित्यादि नवग्रह महाराज की जय आदित्यादि नवग्रह देवता मंत्रपूर्वक प्रदक्षिणं करिष्ये आदित्यं चंद्र भौमो बुध बृहभुजान् भानुजं राहुकेतु नात्वा नित्यं त्रिष्ठन्त्यं जगदुदयलस्थैर्य संपत्ति हेतु ज्योतिश्चक्रेश्वर अश्वत्थधाता जुगतहितान् मेषराश्चादिराशीन् एतानासक्तमुक्तीनि कचरसवरवां भक्तितः प्रार्थयामः यजमानस्याः लोकक्षेमपरिपूर्णता आदित्यादीनवग्रहदेवता प्रार्थनापूर्वक नमस्कारां समर्पयामि षट्शतां सर्वोपचारां समर्पयामि नवग्रहदेवता प्रसाद सिद्धिरस्तु ततः श्रीरमादेवी समेत सत्यनारायण स्वामिने नमः पीठपूजां करिष्ये पूर्वद्वारे द्वारश्रिये नमः धात्रे नमः विधात्रे नमः दक्षिणद्वारे द्वारश्रिये नमः चण्डाय नमः प्रचण्डाय नमः पश्चिमद्वारे द्वारश्रिये नमः जयाय नमः विजयाय नमः उत्तरद्वारे द्वारश्रिये नमः बलाय नमः प्रबलाय नमः मध्ये चिक्चिक्ये नमः महाशक्त्यै नमः तन्मध्ये सहस्रपद्माय नमः कल्पवृक्षाय नमः तन्मूले नवरत्नखचितसुवर्णसंयोगपीठात्मने सकलाधारशक्तिपरिवृताय नमः ओम महेद्यो पृथिवीचन ममेक्षतां पिबृता नो भरिमभिः भूमि सम्प्रात्य आकलशेः चितापदेशे न परमाविका आहते अभिद्रो नाकनिक्रजित् कलशं संस्थाप्य तन्तुं तन्पन्रजतोपानमन्भिः ज्योतिष्पदपदो रक्षति जाकृतान् अनिर्बनं वयतजो गवाम्बपमानर्भवत जनयातैव्यं जनं तन्तुनावेष्ट्य इमं मे गङ्गे च मने सरस्वती श्रुतित्तं भगन्तचता परिष्णिया अतिज्ञया मदद्विदे विदस्तजार्जेकी ये शृणुष्यतुषमया जलमापूर्य काण्डाः काण्डा प्ररोहन्ते परिश येवानो दूर्वे प्रदनतहत्रेण शतेन च दूर्वान् निक्षिप्य अश्वर्तेवो नशदनं पर्णेव वचतकृता गोभाजयित् किला सदा यस्तनवत पूरुषं चूतवल्लभान् निक्षिप्य जाफलनीर्या फला पुष्पायाश्च पुष्पिनीः बृहत्पतिप्रदोदात्तान् मुञ्चन्त्वगम्मतः नारिकेर्बलं निक्षिप्य ओं युवाधुवातापरिवीतः गास्तपुश्रेयाहान् बहुधजायमानः तन्धीरादकवचुभिन्नायन्ति स्वादय मनसा देवयन्तः वस्त्रं निक्षिप्य पुष्पापते प्रतोपते फलनीरफलावत अश्वाजिव सजित्परि वीरदपारयिष्णवः पुष्पमालिकाम् अलङ्कृत्य अस्य श्रीप्राणप्रतिष्ठाब्रह्ममन्त्रस्य ब्रह्म विष्णु महेश्वरा ऋषयः ऋग्यजुश्चामातरवनचन्धां ते प्राणाशक्तिः परादेवता आं बीजं ह्रीं शक्तिः क्रों कीलकम् अस्मिन् श्री सत्यनारायण स्वामिने चित्रपटे कलशे आवाहने विनियोगः ओं ब्रह्म विष्णुरुद्रेभ्यो नमः शरति ऋजुचामचन्देभ्यो नमः मुखे प्राणाख्या देवतायै नमः हृदये आं बीजाय नमः गुह्ये क्रों शक्त्यै नमः पादयोः ओं पृथिव्यापत्येजो ओं आम् अङ्गुष्ठाभ्यः नमः ओं श्रीं रसगन्धात्मनीं तर्जनीभ्यः नमः ओं 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 बुद्धमाभ्यः नमः ओं ऐं ऐं अनामिकाभ्यः नमः ओं ओं वचनाविहारवसन्दनात्मने औं कनिष्ठिकाभ्यः नमः ओं बुद्ध्याहङ्कारचित्ता विज्ञानात्मने करतलकरपृष्ठाभ्यः नमः ओं आं हृदयाय नमः ओं ह्रीं शिरदे स्वाहा ओं हुं शिखाय वचटु ओं ऐं कवचाय हुं ओं भं नेत्रत्रयाय वषटु अं यं रं लं वं शं 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 हरो बुद्ध्याहङ्कारचित्ता विज्ञानात्मने अहात्राय पटु ध्यानं रक्ताम्बोजतपोनता सतरुणसरोजातिरूढा कराब्जैः पाशङ्कोदण्डमिक्ष भवगुणमज्जचाप्यं कुशं पञ्चबाणान् बिभ्राणा शुक्रबाला त्रिनयना पीनवपुषपक्षो बृहाढ्या देवी बालार्कवर्णा भवतु सुखकरी प्राणाशक्तिपराननः ॐ आं ह्रीं ह्रं यं रं लं वं शं शं क्रों हां कलशं कलशे श्रीरमादेवी समेत सत्यनारायणस्याः प्राणाः इह प्राणः चित्रपटेऽस्मिन् आह इहा जीवाः ॐ वाङ्मनः चक्षुश्वाग्राना प्राणात्मनभिषेकित्वाक्षकं चित्तं च स्वाहा स्वामिन् सर्वजगन्नाथ यावत् पूजापदानकं तावत् त्वं प्रीतिभावेन चित्रपटेऽस्मिन् कलशेऽस्मिन् सन्निधिं कुरु ॐ सहस्रशीर्षः पुरुषः सहस्राक्ष सहस्रपात् सभूपं विश्वत वृत्वा अत्यतिष्ठदशाङ्गुलं पुरुषये वेदकं सर्वं यद्भूतं यच्च भव्यं ध्यानं समर्पयामि आवाहयामि आसनं समर्पयामि पादयोः पाद्यं समर्पयामि हस्तयोः वर्ग्यमर्घ्यं समर्पयामि मुखे आचमनीयं समर्पयामि स्नपयामि स्नानानन्तरेण वस्त्रार्थं पुष्पं समर्पयामि आभरणार्थं पुष्पं समर्पयामि अलङ्करणार्थं पुष्पं समर्पयामि पुष्पैः पूजयामि अथ अधाङ्गपूजां करिष्ये केशवाय नमः पादौ पूजयामि गोविन्दाय नमः गुल्बौ पूजयामि ॐ इन्दिरापतये नमः जङ्घे पूजयामि अनघाय नमः जानने पूजयामि जनार्दनाय नमः ऊरु पूजयामि विष्णुशर्पते नमः कटिं पूजयामि कुक्षिस्थाकलभुवनाय नमः उदरं पूजयामि लक्ष्मी वक्षस्थलाय नमः वक्षस्थलं पूजयामि शङ्खचक्रगदा शाङ्गपाणये नमः बाहून् पूजयामि कम्बुकण्ठाय नमः कण्ठं पूजयामि पूर्णेन्दुनिपवक्त्राय नमः वक्त्रं पूजयामि कुन्दकट्पणदन्ताय नमः दन्तान् पूजयामि नासाग्नमुक्तिकाय नमः नासिकां पूजयामि ओं सूर्यचन्द्राग्निधारिणे नमः नेत्रे पूजयामि सहस्रशिरसे नमः शिरः पूजयामि श्री सत्यनारायणस्वामिने नमः सर्वाङ्ग्यानि पूजयामि अथ अष्टोत्तरपूजां करिष्ये ओं सत्यदेवाय नमः ओं सत्यात्मने नमः ओं सत्यभूताय नमः ओं सत्यपुरुषाय नमः ओं सत्यनाथाय नमः ओं सत्यसाक्षिणे नमः ओं सत्ययोगाय नमः ओं सत्यज्ञानाय नमः ओं सत्यनिधये नमः ओं सत्यसम्भवाय नमः ओं सत्यप्रभवे नमः ओं सत्येश्वराय नमः ओं सत्यकामिने नमः ओं सत्यपवित्राय नमः ओं सत्यमङ्गलाय नमः ओं सत्यकल्पाय नमः ओं सत्यसिद्धाय नमः ओं सत्याच्युताय नमः ओं सत्यवीराय नमः ओं सत्याग्रजाय नमः ओं सत्यसन्तुष्टाय नमः ओं सत्यवराहाय नमः ओं सत्यवराजनाय नमः ओं सत्यपूर्णाय नमः ओं सत्यौषधाय नमः ओं सत्यशाश्वताय नमः ओं सत्यप्रवर्तनाय नमः सत्यविभवे नमः सत्यज्येष्ठाय नमः सत्यश्रेष्ठाय नमः सत्यविक्रमणे नमः सत्यधन्विने नमः सत्यमेधाय नमः सत्यधीराय नमः सत्यक्रतवे नमः सत्यकलाय नमः सत्यमोदाय नमः सत्यरुद्राय नमः सत्यब्रह्मणे नमः सत्य अमृताय नमः सत्यवेदान्ताय नमः सत्यचरात्मने नमः सत्यभोक्त्रे नमः सत्याश्रिताय नमः सत्यार्चिताय नमः सत्येन्द्रधराय नमः सत्यसङ्घाय नमः सत्यस्वर्गाय नमः सत्यनियमाय नमः सत्यवेदाय नमः सत्यवेद्याय नमः सत्यबीजोषाय नमः सत्यमाय नमः सत्यमोहाय नमः सत्यशूरानन्दाय नमः सत्यसागराय नमः सत्यसपदे नमः सत्यसिंहाय नमः सत्यमृगाय नमः सत्यलोकपालकाय नमः सत्यस्थिराय नमः सत्यौषधाय नमः सत्यदिक्पालकाय नमः सत्यधनुर्धराय नमः सत्यभुजाय नमः सत्यन्यायाय नमः सत्यसाकिने नमः सत्यसंविरुद्धाय नमः सत्यसंप्रदाय नमः सत्यवग्नये नमः सत्यवाजवे नमः सत्यशिक्षराय नमः सत्यानन्दाय नमः सत्यनीरजाय नमः सत्यश्रीपादाय नमः सत्यगुह्याय नमः सत्योधराय नमः सत्यहृदयाय नमः सत्यकमलाय नमः सत्यन्नालाय नमः सत्यहस्ताय नमः सत्यबाहवे नमः सत्यजिह्वाय नमः सत्यमुख्याय नमः सत्यदंष्ट्राय नमः सत्यनादिकाय नमः सत्यश्रोत्रे नमः ओम सत्यचक्षुषे नमः सत्यशिरसे नमः सत्यमकुटाय नमः सत्याम्बराय नमः सत्य आभरणाय नमः सत्य आयुधाय नमः सत्यश्रीवल्लभाय नमः सत्यकृप्ताय नमः सत्यधृताय नमः सत्यभामरताय नमः सत्यग्रहरूपिणे नमः ओम श्री रमादेवी समेत श्री सत्यनारायण स्वामिने नमः दिव्यौषधः विशेष पुष्पार्चन पूजां समर्पयामि धूपः ओम वनस्पत्युर्भवे दिव्यैर्नानागन्धैः स्तुतं युतः आघ्रेयस्तर्वदेवानां धूपोऽयं प्रतिगृह्यत श्रीरमादेवी समेत सत्यनारायणस्वामिने नमः धूपं समर्पयामि उद्दीप्यस्पजातवेदो भग्नं निरृतिं मम पशुगश्चमक्षमावह जीवनं च दिशो दिशा श्रीरमादेवी समेत सत्यनारायणस्वामिने नमः दीपं दर्शयामि धूपदीपानन्तरं शुद्ध आचमनीयं समर्पयामि नैवेद्यं निवेदयामि ओम मधुवातारुतायते मधुक्षरन्ति सिन्धवः माध्वीर्न सन्तोषधीः मधुनक्तमुतोषधि मधुमत्पार्थितभगं वजः मधुज्योरुत्तु न पिता मधुमान्नो वनस्पतिर्मधुमागमस्तु सूर्यः माध्वीर्गाव भवन्तु नः मधु 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 दाशनशोषं प्लावनसुरमुद्रपदर्जय काश्मीरकदलीफलचिच गोधूमचक्रफलान निवेदनं समर्पयामि मध्ये मध्ये पानीयम् उत्तराभोजनमत्व प्रक्षालनं पादप्रक्षालनं शुद्ध आचमनीयं समर्पयामि पूगीपरच्च कर्पूरे नागवल्लीदलीरितं मुक्ताचूर्णसमायुक्तं ताम्बूलं प्रयुक्तं पूगीपरताम्बूलं समर्पयामि नारायणाय विद्महे वासुदेवाय धीमहि तन्नो विष्णु प्रचोदयात् ओम श्री रमादेवी समेत सत्यनारायणस्वामिने नमः आज्यदीपं दर्शयामि योपां पुष्पं वेद पुष्पवां प्रजावाहन पशुमान् भवति चन्द्रमावाहपां पुष्पं पुष्पवां प्रजावाहन पशुमान् भवति यजेवं वेद योपामायतनं वेद आयतनवान् भवति राजाधिराजाय प्रदक्षदाहिनेः नमो वयं वै श्रवणाय कुर्मः समे कामान् कामकामाय मक्ष्यं कामेश्वरो वै श्रवणो ददातु कुबेराय वै श्रवणाय महाराजाय नमः ओं तद्ब्रह्म ओं तद्वायुः ओं तदात्मा ओं तत्सत्यम् ओं तत्सर्वम् ओं तत्पर नमः अन्तःक्षरतु भूतेषु गुहायां विश्वमूर्तिषु त्वं जग्नत्वं वषट्कारत्वम् इन्द्रद्रगं रुद्रद्रं विष्णुत्वं ब्रह्मत्वं प्रजापतिः त्वं तदापः भोज्योतिरथमृतं ब्रह्मभूर्भुवत्तु वर नारायणाय विद्महे वासुदेवाय धीमहि तन्नो विष्णु प्रचोदयात् महादेव्यै च विद्महे विष्णुपत्न्यै धीमहि तन्नो लक्ष्मी प्रचोदयात् श्रीरमादेवी समेत सत्यनारायणस्वामिने नमः वेदोक्तमन्त्रपुष्पाञ्जलिं समर्पयामि यानि कानि च पापानि जन्मान्तर्गतानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणं पदे पदे प्रकृत्यपापनाशाय प्रकृत्यप्रसिद्धये प्रदक्षिणं करोमि प्रसीद पुरुषोत्तम अन्यथा शरणं नास्ति त्वमेव शरणं मम तस्मात् कारुण्यभावेन रक्ष रक्ष जगदीश्वर अनन्तभक्तिपूर्व नमस्कारां समर्पयामि क्षत्रशामनधर्मपूजार पूजां समर्पयामि अग्निमीहिले पुरोहितं यज्ञस्य देवं ऋत्विजं होताहारं रत्नधातामं इषयत्वो जयत्वा भाजवत्व भाजवत्तदेव वत्तविता प्राप्रक्षित्रेक्षितमाय कर्मणे अग्नः याहि वीतये गृह्णानो हव्यदातये निहोता सत्यपरिहिषि शन्नो देवीरभिष्टयः भवन्तु पीतये शञ्जोरभिस्रावन्दनः शन्नो मित्रश्चं वरुणः शन्नो भवत्पर्यमा शन्न इन्द्र बृहत्पतिः शन्नो विष्णुरुक्रमः नमो ब्रह्मणे नमस्तेवाय त्वमेव प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्मादि त्वामेव प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्म वदिष्यामि ऋतं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि तन्मामवदु तद्भक्तारमवदु अवदु माम् अवदु वक्तारम् ॐ शान्तिः 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 आद्यं पुरुषमीशानं पुरुहूतं पुरकृतं कृतमेकाक्षरं ब्रह्मा व्यक्ताव्यक्तकं सनातनम् ॐ स्वस्ति प्रजाभ्यः परिपालयन्तां न्यायेन मार्गेण महीमहीषाः गोब्राह्मणेभ्यः शुभमस्तु नित्यं लोकादमत्ताः सुखिनो भवन्तु काले वर्षतु पर्जन्यः पृथिवी सस्यशालिनी देशो जंशोपरहितो ब्राह्मणाः सन्तु निर्भयाः अपुत्रा पुत्रिणः सन्तु पुत्रिणः सन्तु पौत्रिणः अधना सधना सन्तु जीवन्तु शरदां शतं जीवन्तु शरदां शतं सर्वं श्री रमादेवी समेत श्री सत्यनारायण स्वामिने नमः सकलक्षमपूजार्पणमस्तु शरणं पवित्रं विततं पुराणं येन पूतादर्शुतिः कृतानि तेन पवित्रेण शुद्धेन पूताः अधिपात्मानमरादिं तरेम श्रीरमादेवी समेत सत्यनारायण स्वामिने नमः आज्यदीपं दर्शयामि दिव्यरक्षां धारयामि जय बोल श्रीरमादेवी समेत सत्यनारायण भगवान् की जय अथ एकादशः जपपारायणम् ओम नमो नारायणाय 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 अथ कथः
Now it's time to hear Šri Satyanārāyana Katha. Now we'll start with chapter 1. Once upon a time, the great Shaunak Muni and 88,000 other rishis assembled in the forest called Naimisharanya. Maharishi Suta, who was well versed in narrating the Puranas, was also present at that time. Shaunak Muni asked Maharishi Suta, "O Maharishi, please tell us about a way by which mankind can attain salvation." Maharishi Suta answered, "Even the great sage Narada asked Lord Vishnu the very same question." Listen very carefully, as I am going to tell you what Lord Vishnu himself told Narada Muni. During his travel to the various world, sage Narada came to visit the earth. There he saw people suffering in their life due to their past karmas. Narada Muni was moved by witnessing such suffering and thought of Lord Narayana, who is ever so kind and full of love for his devotees. So Sage Narada traveled to Vaikunta, the abode of Lord Narayana. There he saw the beautiful sight of Lord Vishnu adorned with his conch, discus, mace, and lotus and in his 4 hands, and with a garland around his neck. Narada spoke humbly, "O Supreme Lord, the Savior of the destitute and the troubled, I surrender at thy feet." Lord Vishnu asked, "Dear Narada, why you have come here? Tell me what is troubling you and what you want, and I will fulfill all your wishes." Narada replied, "O Bhagavan, please, people on the earth are suffering in many ways as a result of their own past sinful deeds. Please bestow thy grace and tell me how they can be helped and how to end their sufferings." Lord Narayana spoke to Narada as follows: "Narada, because of your kindness and your wish to help mankind, you have asked me these questions, and because of my kinship with you, I will give you the answer. Mankind can be rid of all its sufferings by observing the Satyanarayana Vrata. This Vrata, when performed according to the religious rites, will bring happiness, peace of mind, and prosperity in this life and salvation beyond." On hearing these words, Narada was filled with joy and said, "O Lord, in your infinite grace, please tell me the details involved in observing this Vrata and the fruits and positive effects of such observance." Lord Narayana replied, "On a full moon day, one must gather one's friends and relatives and perform the puja in the evening with devotion and offer fruits, ghee, milk, curd, butter, wheat, flour, sugar, and honey to the Lord. After the puja is finished, the story of Lord Satyanarayana must be read to one and all present for the puja. After reading the story, prasada must be distributed to all. The assembled Brahmins must also be fed and gift must be given to them. If the puja is thus performed, it will bring fulfillment of one's wishes. Particularly in this Kali Yuga, this will bring contentment to the devotees observing the puja. Thus ended the first chapter of Satyanarayana Katha in the Reva Kanta of Skanda Purana. Bolo Sri Satyanarayana Bhagavani ki jai. Narayanaya Vitmahe Vasudevaya Dhimahi. Tanno Vishnu Prachodayat. Bolo Sri Satyanarayana Bhagavani ki jai. Now let us hear chapter 2. Maharishi Suta continued his narration. O learned rishis, let me tell you stories about devotees who performed this puja in the past and achieved greatness. Once there lived a poor Brahmin in the city of Kashi. Plagued by his hunger, he used to wander around every day. Lord Vishnu, who is all kindness, appeared before the poor Brahmin in the form of an old man and asked, Why are you wandering around aimlessly? The poor Brahmin replied, Sir, I am a very poor Brahmin, unable to bear the pangs of hunger. I wander around begging for alms. If you know a way to help me out of my misery, pray, tell me please. Whereupon Lord Vishnu, who was in the guise of the old man, said, O Brahman, Lord Satyanarayana bestows his grace on his devotees and removes their sorrows. So you should observe this vrata and reap its benefit. Lord Vishnu then explained the details of the puja to the poor Brahmin and disappeared. The poor Brahmin immediately resolved to perform the Satyanarayana puja. After a sleepless night, he got up early in the morning and went to beg for alms. His mind was fixed only on the puja. That day he got a lot of money with which he bought the necessary materials prescribed to him earlier by the Lord himself and performed the puja with his friends and relatives. With the grace of Lord Satyanarayana, he was able to come out of his poverty and led a contented life. He continued performing this puja every month and finally attained salvation. The assembled rishis who were listening to the Maharishi then asked, O great one, please tell us in detail who else performed this puja. Maharishi Suta then continued his narration. One day, when the poor Brahmin from Kashi was performing the puja, a woodcutter entered his house and asked for water. Seeing the puja being performed, the woodcutter inquired about the puja and its purpose. The Brahmin from Kashi, who was now prosperous due to Lord Satyanarayana's grace, spoke as follows. This is called Satyanarayana Pooja. Anyone who performs this puja will get riches. I myself have been bestowed with wealth. The woodcutter was delighted to hear about this puja. He learned the proper way to perform the puja, ate the prasad, and went on his way. With Lord Satyanarayana in his thought, he resolved in his mind that he will perform the puja with whatever money he made that day. He went to the area in the city where rich people lived and sold the wood for a good profit. With that money, he bought ghee, sugar, honey, butter, curd, milk, flour, and fruits and performed the puja properly and with devotion, along with his friends and relatives. By Lord Satyanarayana's grace, he too acquired enormous wealth and lived comfortably and attained salvation. Thus ended the second chapter of Satyanarayana Katha in the Reva Kanta of Skanda Purana. Bolo Sri Satyanarayana Bhagavani ki jai. Narayanaya Vitmahe Vasudevaya Dhimahi. Tanno Vishnu Prachodayat. Bolo Sri Satyanarayana Bhagavani ki jai. Now let us hear chapter 3. Maharishi Suta continued, O best of ascetic, I will tell you yet another story. Long time ago, there lived a wise king called Alkamuka. He had mastered all his senses and always spoke the truth. He went to the temple every day and gave gift to the learned Brahmins. His lotus-faced wife was a pure and pious woman. One day, the royal couple was performing the Satyanarayana Puja on the banks of river Bhadrashila. At that time, a merchant called Sadhu sailed by on a boat full of merchandise. Seeing the king performing the puja, Sadhu stopped the boat and got off and addressed the king humbly. O king, would you kindly tell me what you are doing with such devotion and concentration? The king replied, O Sadhu, I have no children. In order that I may be blessed with children, I am worshipping the Almighty Lord Satyanarayana. On hearing this, Sadhu said to the king softly and with respect, O king, kindly let me know how to perform the puja. I would also like to observe this vrata as I too have no children. The king proceeded to give Sadhu, the merchant, all the details about performing the puja. Sadhu returned home happily and told his wife about his encounter with the king and informed her that he had resolved to perform the Satyanarayana Puja after a child is born. By the divine grace, Sadhu's wife Leelavati conceived a child, and in due course a beautiful daughter was born to Sadhu and his wife. They named their daughter as Kalavati. Sadhu did not perform the puja after the daughter's birth, and Leelavati dutifully reminded him about his promise to perform the puja. Sadhu said he will perform the puja once his daughter Kalavati got married. Sadhu then put the whole matter out of his mind and carried on with his work and daily life. In the meantime, Kalavati grew up and blossomed into a lovely girl. Sadhu sent out word to find a suitable groom for his daughter. One of his messengers found a young and handsome boy from a Vaishya family from Kanchananagar. Sadhu found the boy to be a suitable match for his beautiful daughter Kalavati. He celebrated his daughter's wedding with a great pomp and show. But unfortunately, Sadhu completely forgot about his promise to perform the Satyanarayana Pooja, for which he was soon to learn a big lesson about the importance of keeping serious promises, especially ones that are related to the kind and all-knowing Lord Satyanarayana. One day, Sadhu set out on a business trip with his son-in-law. He stopped to trade in the city of Ratnapura, which was ruled by King Chandraketu. Then events started to unfold as per the will of Lord Satyanarayana. Some thieves robbed King Chandraketu's treasury and were running away. The king's soldier gave them hot pursuit. The frightened thief threw all the things they had stolen from the palace near Sadhu and his son-in-law. The king's soldier found the stolen goods near Sadhu and his son-in-law and hence arrested them and brought them before the king. Lord Satyanarayana's Maya or illusion was in full force by now. Without proper questioning, the king ordered that the Sadhu and his son-in-law be chained and thrown into prison. Again, because of the Maya of the Lord, no one paid any attention to what Sadhu had to say in his own defense. King Chandraketu's soldier had also confiscated all the merchandise of Sadhu and his son-in-law. Meanwhile, some robbers broke into Sadhu's house at his hometown and stole all the valuables. Sadhu's family therefore lost all their possessions. One day, due to the extreme hunger, Kalavati left the house and wandered around looking for food. She arrived at the house where a Satyanarayana Puja was being performed. When the puja was finished, she gladly accepted and ate the prasad that was handed over to her. Leelavati remembered her husband's promise about performing the puja. She resolved to observe the puja by herself. She assembled her relatives and friends, performed the puja, and prayed that he forgive all the sins committed by her family. The magnanimous Lord was pleased with Leelavati's prayer. So he pleased King Chandraketu's dream and ordered him to release Sadhu and his son-in-law as they were really innocent. Lord Satyanarayana also warned the king that he must follow the orders, or else he will face terrible consequences and risk losing his kingdom and his family. Next morning, King Chandraketu informed his counselors about his dream and ordered that the two merchants be freed. Sadhu and his son-in-law stood before the king in fright, but whereas the king asked for their forgiveness for his mistakes and gave them large gift and also returned their merchandise his soldiers had confiscated from them. The king then bade farewell to Sadhu and his son-in-law. Thus ended the third chapter of Satyanarayana Katha in the Revakanta of Skanda Purana. Bolo Šri Satyanarayana Bhagavani ki jai. Narayanaya vitmahe vasudevaya dhimahi tanno Vishnu prachodayat. Now it's time to hear chapter 4. Sadhu and his son-in-law loaded their boat with the riches given to them by the king and sailed homeward. Sadhu's earnestness with respect to devotion to the Lord in the past was questionable, and he was therefore still subject to testing by the Lord if he so desired. Lord Satyanarayana appeared before Sadhu in the form of an ascetic and asked him what he was carrying in his boat. Without realizing that ascetic was indeed Lord Satyanarayana himself, Sadhu mockingly said, "You ascetic, were you thinking of stealing my things from the boat? We don't have any valuables in the boat anyway. All we have are some leaves and creepers." The ascetic told Sadhu, "So be it," and departed in great haste and stood by the shore. When Sadhu went back to boat, he discovered to his horror that the boat was really filled with leaves and creepers, and he as he falsely told the ascetic. Sadhu fainted upon seeing this sight, but he was revived by his son-in-law, who was thoughtfully said, This must be the curse of the ascetic. He must be a mystic. Let us go and ask for his forgiveness. The two merchants went to the seashore where the ascetic was meditating. They fell at his feet and repeatedly begged for his forgiveness. Pleased by Sadhu's action, the kind and magnanimous Lord Satyanarayana said, Sadhu, do not weep. You suffered because you broke your promise again and again. On hearing this, Sadhu again prayed to Lord Satyanarayana, saying, O Lord, even Brahma and other devas cannot comprehend your form completely. How can I, with my limited knowledge, comprehend your various forms? I pray to you according to my limited knowledge. Please show me your true form and bless me. Upon hearing his prayer, the Lord was pleased and granted his wishes and restored Sadhu's merchandise on the boat and disappeared. So the two merchants then joyfully sailed homeward. On reaching their hometown, they sent a messenger to their respective wives so as to inform them about their safe arrival. At that time, Leelavati and Kalavati were in the middle of performing the Satyanarayana Pooja. Leelavati dutifully did all the puja properly and asked Kalavati to do so as well. Then Leelavati hurried to the shore to meet her husband. In her eagerness, Kalavati rushed through the puja and ran to meet her husband without taking her prasad. This action of Kalavati was clearly an indicator of her lack of sincerity in her puja, which to her was a lower priority when compared to meeting her husband. Kalavati learned her lesson quickly. Without any reason, due to the Lord's Maya, Kalavati saw that the boat had capsized and her husband had drowned. Kalavati started weeping with great sorrow at the turn of events. Sadhu was at a loss to know what to do, but still wanted to help his daughter Kalavati. He announced that he will be performing the Satyanarayana Puja and prayed to Lord Satyanarayana again and again. At this juncture, Lord Satyanarayana, who is the savior of sinners, was very pleased, and his voice was heard to say, O Sadhu, your daughter did not eat prasad and did not finish the puja properly in her haste to see her husband. Let she go home and eat the prasad and return. With full faith in the Lord, Kalavati, who was remorseful by this time, rushed home, took her prasad, and ate it with great devotion. When she returned to the seashore, she found her husband back in his boat. Then Sadhu returned home happily with his wife, daughter, and son in law. Since then, Sadhu never failed to perform the Satyanarayana Puja every full moon day. With the Lord's grace, he enjoyed all the comforts in this world and finally attained salvation. Thus ended chapter 4 of Satyanarayana Katha in the Revakanta of Skanda Purana. Bolo Sri Satyanarayana Bhagavani ki jai. Narayanaya Vitmahe Vasudevaya Dhimahi. Tanno Vishnu Prachodayat. Bolo Sri Satyanarayana Bhagavani ki jai. Let us hear the last chapter 5. Maharishi Suta continued. Once there was a king called Tungadhwaja who underwent a lot of misery after refusing the prasad from Satyanarayana Puja. One day after hunting, he was sitting under a shady tree. Some cowards were performing the Satyanarayana Puja nearby. The king, in his vanity, refused the prasad they offered. When he reached his palace, he found that his kingdom, his 100 sons, his wealth, and everything were got destroyed. Then it occurred to him that Lord Satyanarayana was probably displeased with him. He went back to the cowards, prostrated himself before the Lord Satyanarayana's altar, and performed the puja with great devotion. Lord Satyanarayana showed his blessings, and the king regained everything he had lost earlier. He lived happily and reached Vaikunta after his death. Maharishi Suta said, O holy men, I have narrated to you the Satyanarayana Katha, which was originally told by Lord Vishnu to sage Narada. By observing this vrata, mankind can attain salvation. In this Kali Yuga, observance of vrata can lead to gratification of one's wishes. Maharishi Suta concluded his narration by telling the assembled rishis that the blessings that were given by the Lord to people in the above stories. The poor Brahmin of Kashi was reborn as Sudama, the friend of Lord Krishna, who was blessed by Lord Krishna with prosperity and salvation. The woodcutter was reborn as Guha, who devotedly served Lord Rama and attained salvation. King Alkamukha was reborn as Dasratha, the father of Lord Rama himself. Sadhu was reborn as King Mayuradhwaja, who won the test of Lord Krishna administered to him by offering his body to be cut into two halves and offered for charity. King Tungadwaja was reborn as Manu, the writer of laws, who gave to mankind the code of conduct for righteousness. Thus ended chapter 5 and the narration of Maharishi Sutta, after which Saunak and other rishis returned to their respective places. Bolo Sri Satyanarayana Bhagavan ki jai. Narayanaya Vitmahe Vasudevaya Dhimahi Tanno Vishnu Prachodayate. Bolo Sri Satyanarayana Bhagavan ki jai.
అమోఘం పుండరీకాక్షం నృసింహం దైత్యసూదనం ఋషికేశం జగన్నాథం వాగీశం వరదాజకం సుగుణం చ గుణాతీతం గోవిందం గరుడధ్వజం జనానర్ధనం జనానందం జానకీ వల్లభం హరిం. నమస్కారాన్ సమర్పయామి. ఓం ఓం సాంగ్రహణ్యేశ్చాయజతే ఇమాం జనతాగం సంగృహ్ణానీతి ద్వాదశారత్నీరశనా భవతి ద్వాదశమాసాత్ సంవత్సరః సంవత్సరమేవావరుంధే మౌంజీ భవతి ఊర్ధ్వై ముంజాః ఊర్జమేవావరుంధే చిత్రా నక్షత్రం భవతి చిత్రం వా ఏతత్కర్మ యథస్వమేధస్తమృద్యైః. శ్రీ రమాదేవి సమేత శ్రీ సత్యనారాయణ స్వామినే నమః. పంచముఖహారతిం సమర్పయామి. దివ్యరక్షాం ధారయామి. నమస్కరోమి. జై బోలో సత్యనారాయణ భగవానుకి జై.